in this session organized by FAO on energy smart agri-food systems for climate action. So welcome everyone. This is a really magnificent location here, and I'm happy you all found the meeting room. It's not so easy, so congratulations. But yeah, so at this forum, of course, we're focusing today and tomorrow on energy and climate issues, right? So the question is then, why do we need to put food into the equation? And I'm sure all of you are, aware of why, because that's why you came to this session, because you feel it's important. But just to go back to some of the basics. So 1/3 of global GHG emissions stem from agri-food systems, right? So obviously we need to reduce these emissions somehow. So that's one part of the challenge. On the other hand, we also need to ensure that we can feed a growing global population, which is already challenging today to make sure that everyone has access to affordable food and the sufficient nutrition. But we're looking at projections are by 2050 a global population of almost 10 billion, which will have to be fed. So we need to decrease emissions and increase outputs of the agri-food systems. How do we do this? Well, obviously we need to have a fundamental transformation of agri-food systems. And here energy is key. And just one stat, 33% of the emissions from agri-food systems are from energy use, right? So we need to ensure that the energy used in agri-food systems is clean and that it's used efficiently. But we also need to ensure that agri-food systems have energy available in order to produce effectively and to guarantee that we can feed a growing global population. So it's also a question about ensuring energy access and doing that through means of applying clean energy sources. And just to sort of come full circle a bit with these energy, food, and climate. Energy and food also obviously, they don't just impact climate with the emissions, but also climate has very detrimental effects already today, climate change on energy and food systems. So the three of them are very strongly interlinked. But that's also a chance, because if we apply a solution in one of these areas, then if we do it right, we can also reap some benefits in the other two areas. And this is exactly the type of solutions that we should be talking about and that we want to talk about today. And we will hear about various approaches from the distinguished panelists that we will get to listen to today. So this panel discussion is an opportunity to exchange lessons learned and good practices to stimulate innovation and cooperation. We want to identify opportunities and challenges which could facilitate also a roadmap for action towards innovative transformation of agri-food systems and related green energy solutions. So from the side of UN Energy Secretariat, so I work at the UN Energy Secretariat, I just quickly take the opportunity to highlight that we're working together with the various UN agencies who are the members of UN Energy on the ground to exactly increase coordination in order to increase the co-benefits that we get from the various projects, such as with the food sector, energy, food interlinkages. And of course, FAO and UNIDO are at the heart of this. And both FAO and UNIDO also have created energy compacts, which underline their ambition and work in these areas. And if you want to hear more about the energy compacts, a little bit of self-advertisement tomorrow at the same time. On the main stage, we will be talking about the energy compacts. But today we will be hearing from our panelists about local innovation in sustainable agri-food systems, on co-benefits of these actions, especially in terms of climate co-benefits and livelihoods, about the barriers encountered and what changes are needed to enabling environment to scale up these systems, about the roles of cultures and policies, and also what the financial and social requirements are, and about how nuclear derived technologies can be scaled up in agri-food systems. So this brings me then to the panelists, and it's my great pleasure to introduce them at the start. So I would start with Ms. Ute Collier, who is the Acting Director of Knowledge, Policy and Finance Center at IRENA in Abu Dhabi, and she's responsible for IRENA's work on policy, markets and finance for the energy transition. Before joining IRENA, she was head of energy at Practical Action, and she held positions at the IEA and the UK's Climate Change Committee. Then we also have here Ms. Christina Skirka, who is the CEO of Power for All, leading a global campaign with over 300 partners to hasten the end of energy poverty through boosting the adoption of decentralized renewable energy. She also serves on the technical advisory group for SDG 7 for the UN, which I can attest to personally, and with very valuable inputs. And she has a career spanning over 20 years in the energy sector. Joining us online, hopefully, we're experiencing some technical difficulties, but hopefully joining us online will be Mr. Brian Isambrie, who is the Commissioner for Renewable Energy at the Ministry of Energy and Minerals Development of Uganda. Then here, back to the room, we also have Mr. Fred Kongongongo, who is a project manager at UNIDO Agribusiness and Infrastructure Development Division here in Vienna. And he supports smallholder farmers to adopt sustainable energy and post-harvest management solutions, and particularly his initiative in Sudan to improve livelihoods and nutrition security with special attention towards women was recognized by the UN as one of the SDG best practices. And then we also have here Mr. Mohamed Zaman, who is a soil scientist and plant nutritionist at the International Atomic Energy Agency. And he has 32 years of professional life in several public and private organizations, including fertilizer industry. And he has developed climate-smart agricultural practices using nuclear and isotopic techniques, which contributed to 15 success stories in different member states. And finally, Mr. Xiaohai Xu is the co-founder and chief operating officer at Lucky Elephant Solar, where he has the leading role to focus on delivering sustainable solutions through technology and practical actions. Before, he co-founded Lixon Renewable Energy, a company dedicated to developing lithium battery solutions. Now, as you see, plenty of expertise we can count on for this discussion today. But to kick us off, it's my great pleasure to introduce Ms. Maria Michela Morese, who is Senior Natural Resource Officer at the FAO and who will be providing a keynote for us. She works at the Office of Climate Change, Biodiversity and Environment, is also the energy team leader, and she has over 20 years of experience working on climate change, environment and bioenergy, and of course energy smart agri-food systems. So with that, Michaela, please. And,
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. So thank you, Martin, for this overview, and a big thank you to all participants for your participation and your interest in the thematic area of the session that we will have today. And you may have seen from the overview of the speakers that we will have a very vast variety of case studies and good examples to be heard. With this presentation, I would like to give you an overview of, of how energy, agriculture, and climate are strictly interconnected. All the speeches and interventions in the plenary are very much into the lines, are facilitating my job in giving this presentation. But of course, the more we go into the details also of looking at examples, concrete examples and numbers, because of course this gives us an idea of the magnitude of how energy, green, sustainable, modern energy could contribute in terms of agri-food systems and in terms of climate action. All right, so as I mentioned before, food security, energy security, and climate are are very much interconnected. So we know that agri-food systems need energy at each step of the value chain. So on the right side, you have, so here you have an example of the value chain, and you see that agriculture and food security is connected to energy because we need energy at each step of the agricultural value chain, of the agri-food value chain. But we also know that the use of energy, sometimes unsustainable, affects in terms of climate change, which is affecting back again to agriculture. So it's a circle, unfortunately, in the sense that if we green up and make it more sustainable, all the circle will be virtuous. We know that 30% of the world energy is used in agri-food systems. And we know that 31% of total GHG emissions are due to this amount of energy used in agri-food systems. So it's an important component, the energy in terms of use and in terms of emissions when connected to agri-food systems. And 70% of the emissions connected to energy occur after the farm gate. So up until here is 30% of the emissions due to the use of energy, 70% is here. This means that it gives us an idea of where we need to intervene. When it's needed to intervene most. And of course, if we think about this in a general overview of the fact that by 2050, the global population is expected to increase by, reaching almost 10 billion people by 2050, it means that this increased number of population will need food, water, and energy. And it means that we need to, as it was mentioned today in the plenary, we need to do more using less. So we need to make it more and more efficient. And in this, agriculture could be part of the solution. We need to make sure that agriculture becomes part of the solution, because agriculture is at the basis of the global livelihood, and we need to work on agriculture very much. As FAO, we look at energy applied to agri-food systems at 360 degrees. So we look at the energy for agriculture, that's the case of wind or solar, which is used as an energy, as a power for the agri-food systems. We look at the energy from agriculture, so from residues, biomass, and of course, last but certainly not least, we look at the efficiency and at the sustainability throughout the agriculture value chain. We said that energy, agriculture, and climate are strictly interconnected, and energy, nutrition, and climate and emissions are strictly interconnected as well. And of course, if we make sure that the production of food that we have is not wasted, we tend to make best use of the production that we have. So we know that today around 3 billion people can't afford a healthy diet. And this is also connected to the fact that a third of what is produced in terms of food is lost, is wasted. And most of these loss and waste is due to the fact that we don't have good refrigeration systems, for example. This means that energy-smart solutions at each step of the value chain can make food more accessible, keep it fresh and nutritious, so also for food security and nutrition purposes, keep it fresh for longer time, and of course reduce food loss and waste, and all the related emissions. Exactly the same point that I did before. Agriculture, agri-food systems, energy used, a lot of emissions, and we need to intervene there in order to make sure that we reduce emissions in order to get more with less. So sustainable food cold chain, refrigeration systems throughout the agri-food value chain is one kind of approach that would reduce food loss and waste and all the related emissions that I mentioned. And in this case, we developed a report and also an animated video that I would like to show in a couple of minutes on the importance of cold chain in terms of sustainable food and food security and nutrition. In addition to this, we also have developed as FAO, and in connection with the Global Bioenergy Partnership, we have also developed a literature review collecting all good examples of bioenergy approach that could be positive in terms of nutrition security. And that's the case, for example, of byproducts like biochar from gasification or digestate from biogas digester put into the soil in order to put nutrients into the soil that comes back as a nutrient into the food. And this is the video that I will show in a second. But in the meantime, just to give you an overview, I mean, from FAO headquarters, we are working throughout the globe with many projects and programs that goes from bioenergy potential, from various residues, from hazelnut rather than pig waste, pig manure, rather than post-harvest to reduce organic waste, and improved cold storage units to reduce post-harvest losses. You know, all the potential assessment in Zambia and Rwanda. Important, for example, in India, we've been working in order to look at the potential of rice straw that instead of being burnt into the soil could be used as a biomass feedstock, of course. And so in this case, we studied the creation, the establishment of a whole value chain in order to make sure that instead of considering rice straw as a waste, it's considered as a resource, as it is the case, of course. And cold chain as well is another important work, I mean, thematic area that we work on a lot. In addition to this, the FAO headquarters in Rome also host the secretariat of a long-lasting international initiative, which is the Global Bioenergy Partnership, that brings together now more or less 90 between governments and international organizations, focusing on how to facilitate a sustainable development of bioenergy. So just a few numbers, just to give you an idea of the magnitude and facts and figures from a number of case studies that we've done. So for example, Rwanda and Zambia, that I mentioned also before. So in this case, agriculture, just by using agricultural waste and residues, could give access to clean cooking fuels to 12% more households in Zambia and 33% more households in Rwanda. It's quite a lot, just by using existing waste and residues from agriculture. Cold chain, the report. So this is something that gives really a magnitude of the case, of the situation. So lack of effective refrigeration directly results in the loss of 526 million tons of food production, which is 12% of the global total production of food. It's a lot. So, for example, if food loss would be a country, it would be the third emitter in the world. It's a lot. This gives, again, an idea of where we need to concentrate our attention in terms of reducing emissions and making it more sustainable. India, exactly what I mentioned before. So the use of rice straw as a resource, not as a residue, not as a waste. And how the current, even just using the 30% of the currently burned rice straw could contribute to all these national targets, which is a lot, really. Azerbaijan, just less than 2 million investment in the hazelnut value chain in the country could contribute to produce chocolate briquette, and instead of using gas, which would mean about saving 42,000 tons of CO2 equivalent every year. Uzbekistan, it's the same. I mean, just a study in 3 regions for value chain with there is a potential to reduce 110,000 tons CO2 equivalent per year. Vietnam and Paraguay, it's the same. We applied the GBEP indicators. There are GBEP sustainability indicators to measure the performances, environmental, social, and economic, of each value chain in a country. And in this case, in Vietnam, for example, there is a potential of GHG emission reduction compared to diesel of 38% by using cassava-based ethanol and 42% by using biogas from pig manure. Same in Paraguay, but 40% using sugarcane-based ethanol. And in both cases, these feedstock would not have, I mean, from the study that we've done, from the application that we've done, would not have an impact in food security because those feedstock are not valued, let's say, in the country in terms of food resources. This means that pursuing SDG 7 would be complementary and the means to go through and pursue all the other SDGs, because SDG 7, achieving SDG 7 is very cross-cutting to each and every one of the other 16 SDGs, in addition to the SDG 7, which is on energy. Now, it's a couple of minutes video. It's on, as I mentioned before, it's very, it's very immediate as a message, and the importance of cold chain in order to make food value chains more and more sustainable. Let's see if it goes. No, then I go back. It's the turn of technicians. Thank you so much. No problem. And while it goes, I will mention that the report and the animated video was developed by FAO in collaboration with UNEP, with the Italian Ministry for the Environment, and it's also a contribution to the Montreal Protocol. So it's connected to also the Montreal Protocol, as you can imagine, because it's connected to refrigeration systems. Just give us a second.
Every year, we produce more than enough food to feed everyone on the planet. So why are millions of people still going to bed hungry, and millions of small-scale farmers still living in poverty? While the reasons are complex, one of the many critical issues to be addressed is food loss and waste. Around 14% of food is lost before it reaches consumers, while 17% is wasted at consumer level every year. This also means less income for farmers and fewer opportunities to improve livelihoods. Where is it all going wrong? One reason is the lack of effective cold chains, which in simple terms means keeping food fresh from farm to fork. Perishable foods must be kept in a cool, temperature-controlled environment throughout the journey from production, aggregation and storage, processing, marketing and distribution, all the way to our plates. This temperature-controlled supply chain of food is called the food cold chain. But cooling technologies can consume a lot of electricity, still largely generated from fossil fuels. Some continue to use ozone-depleting substances, ODSs, or hydrofluorocarbons, HFCs, which are powerful greenhouse gases. Today, cold chains contribute towards around 4% of global GHG emissions, which impact climate change and food production. Lack of access to food cold chains impacts food security, livelihoods, and limits access to markets. Without sustainable cooling solutions, our health, food, and livelihoods are at risk. So what's being done to improve the food cold chain? In 1987, nations came together to sign the Montreal Protocol to help save the ozone layer. This involved phasing out ODSs in various sectors, including cooling technologies. Under its Kigali Amendment, nations committed to phasing down HFCs while also addressing energy efficiency issues. And in 2019, the Rome Declaration called on governments, organizations, and private initiatives to collaborate on building sustainable food cold chain solutions. FAO and UNEP believe this can be achieved by improving access to energy for cooling along the food value chain, developing and gathering data, improving technical capacity, updating policies, implementing efficiency improvements, and financing new business models for upscaling. Sustainable food cold chains will help us work towards the SDGs by creating a healthier planet, supporting farmers and fishers' livelihoods, and ensuring more nutritious food reaches everyone's plates.
Thank you very much. And I hope that this overview has given you, some food for thought that will be then, integrated into the discussion of the next panel discussion. So over to Martin for the follow-up. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Michaela, for this excellent presentation to get us started. Personally, I think the map was very interesting because not only does it show the geographic scope of FAO's work, but it also shows very clearly the diversity of actions that we need to apply, right, in order to get agri-food systems energy smart in support of climate action. And the good thing is you'll also hear a diversity of such approaches and applications from our panelists today. And I would like to start with IRENA. Ute Collier from IRENA. IRENA is, of course, a global authoritative voice on renewable energy and that's based on excellent analytical work, which Ute is really at the middle of. She, as mentioned in the beginning, she's the acting Director of Knowledge, Policy and Finance, the Finance Center at IRENA. Over to you, Ute.
Thank you. Great, we got the right slides. So, okay, renewables, or let's put it, why are we at IRENA interested in agriculture? Now, you'll probably see us pop up a lot at the moment in relation to COP28. Just this week with the incoming presidency and the Global Renewables Alliance, we launched this new initiative to get pledges for tripling renewables, which is all the big capacity stuff. We're saying we need 11 gigawatts by 2030. And of course, in agriculture, a lot of these applications are actually relatively small scale. But, we've already heard from Michaela some of the issues in terms of course, how it all adds up in the whole agri-food chain in terms of emissions. But then also this big issue of the lack of energy access and how that impacts on livelihoods. And in the end, we're not a UN organization, but we are an energy agency that has 167 member states. And of course, a lot of them are developing countries. And for them, it's an absolutely fundamental issue. And we always want to remind people that it's all great to talk about, tripling renewables, this and that, the energy transition. But as we heard from Damilola earlier on, in countries like Africa, there's nothing to transition from in the energy sector. We actually need to get the energy to people. And of course, tomorrow we'll be talking, I see Carlos here, there is another event where we'll be talking about productive use in agriculture, GOGLA, SNV, etc. So please come to that as well. It's clearly an area where renewables can play an important role. So we've already heard about the issue that we can meet all the SDGs. For us, it's really an important issue in addition to the other work we do on renewables. We've done a fair amount of work. Of course, there is this seminal joint report we did with FAO in 2021. So anything you want to know about renewables in agri-food systems, please download the report you see there in the middle. We've done a number of other things, specifically on heating and cooling in Southeast Asia. You know, obviously this is not just about electricity. We've also been looking at agri-food value chains in places like the Hindu Kush, Himalaya. And in fact, we did have an energy compact together with FAO on doing more of these value chains assessment. But honestly, it's very, very difficult to get the funding for these kind of things. So again, it sort of reminds us what Damilola said early on. The money is just lacking, especially for some of these things in the least developed countries. We do also do a lot of work on geothermal, which has some very good applications in agriculture, both in the developing world and in the developed world here in Europe. It's quite a big thing in the Netherlands, for example. In my last couple of minutes, I just want to talk a bit about an initiative we are launching at COP28. Because in all of this work, of course, we've done a lot of identification on barriers and solutions, and you won't be surprised to hear things like siloed policy making and planning, you know, energy departments versus agriculture departments, people not necessarily understanding each other's language, lack of data and information, really a big deal in many of the least developed countries. We're trying to do ourselves quite a lot on that, gathering statistics on things like biogas production and use of biogas for cooking, but it's not easy. So there are a whole load of barriers, and of course what you need in terms of solutions. It's a very integrated approach. This comes from a report we did with the Selco Foundation, specifically on livelihoods. Clearly, it all needs to come together, and it needs to be a kind of needs-based approach. So at COP28, we will launch with the UAE and a number of other partners, and we had a kind of pre-launch a few months ago at the Spain International Renewable Energy Conference, an initiative called Empowering Lives and Livelihoods, which is trying to bring together both the sort of the renewable energy aspects, but also the looking at the climate adaptation aspects. So we've done some preliminary work, we've done some country assessments in places like Guinea and Rwanda. We have had some funding from the UAE. I think we've now managed to get a few more partners in. The idea is that it's eventually a $1 billion initiative, which again, you know, it's not quite enough, but the point is, you know, we need to get more attention to the needs of renewables in agriculture, and bringing it to the COP, I think, is a really potentially very important venue. And the COP doesn't normally talk about agriculture, I think, or water or whatever. So we will be there with our partners. It's trying to bring in all the other important aspects that for inclusivity. It's about agriculture and health, by the way. But yeah, so look out for this initiative, and we will of course have to be working with partners in the countries where we'll be working, so hopefully with some of you. So I will pass back to Martin.
Thank you very much, Ute. And and what a great message to bridge over to Christina. So we heard there's not enough money to work in this area. We need more finance for organizations like ARENA and FAO to do projects in order to get agri-food systems energy smart. And Christina, sorry, you have an excellent experience, of course, in campaigning and we need your guidance on our messaging and how we can mobilize the actions that are needed. So I hope that is what you were planning to talk about, or at least part of it. Over to you. And of course, as mentioned at the beginning, Christina, CEO of Power for All. Not yet?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. How long do I have?
6 minutes.
6 minutes, okay. Well, first of all, I'm just curious who's in the room. How many of us in the room have actually worked on a farm or a ranch? Okay, that's not bad. I'm going to call that about a fifth of the room. But, you know, I think one of the important things I want to drive home with this conversation, reflecting back on a panel that we actually had a few months ago in Rome at FAO during the Food Systems Summit, alongside our friends at IRENA and FAO, was a discussion about how do we change this trajectory that we're on. And long story short, since I have 6 minutes, Power for All's real focus is on accelerating adoption of decentralized renewable energy, right? So for those who, maybe that sounds like a word salad, that is actually solar rooftops, mini grids, it could be biofueled, different kinds of power, et cetera, and also what people are referring to as productive use equipment, which I think needs a complete rebrand because nobody understands what that means, but effectively it is some of the appliances and mechanization available for farms today. But I guess when we've been working in our campaign, Powering Agriculture, specifically going deep in countries like Uganda and India, as well as Ethiopia, we've come across a couple of pretty significant, but yet very consistent barriers in each country. So one is that level of awareness and trust in what is still a rather nascent and growing market. Now, there's a lot already to be learned from the growth of the rooftop solar market in developing countries, which is, again, is where we focus. But some of those lessons include making sure that there's a strong emphasis on quality, not taking the market with cheap, poorly produced knockoff products that aren't quality certified. So that's one thing that really helps. But when it comes to awareness raising, there's nothing more powerful in the community of agriculture than word of mouth and referrals from those who already work in the space. So many of the efforts we're doing to drive awareness and interest in this category is working with farmers and farmers cooperatives groups to really show on the ground how these products work and that they can be trusted. And I do think that there's a unique moment in time. I mean, obviously with the war against Ukraine, one of the things that happened was a complete disruption of the existing fuel supply chains. So in some ways that was obviously hugely problematic, but it also created an opportunity for renewables-based sector. And so with that, one of the things that happened, for example, in Ethiopia is working with our partners at the Ministry of Lowlands and Irrigation, there was an agreed national ban on diesel-powered water pumps. And when we have moments in time like this where we can actually, as a sector, sort of band together, working in coordination across the ecosystem, it's a huge opportunity. But this sort of last topic around how do we actually get the things that are needed into the hands of farmers? And climate finance was mentioned several times already today, but that's a critical juncture. And the way most farmers access that kind of capital is often through local savings group or through MFIs. So figuring out a way to create more effective partnerships and build trust in the MFI community with these products and services is a big part of something we all can do. I'm sure that is right around 6 minutes, so I'm going to hand it back to Martin.
Thank you very much. Thanks. To be completely honest, I didn't even follow the time because I trust you so much. So our next speaker is Fred, who's a project manager at UNIDO. And Fred has experience how to get things moving on the ground. And so, Fred, please share your knowledge with us.
Yeah, thank you very much. I didn't mention that I'm a semi-retired smallholder farmer, yeah, because I used to, my presentation is already there. We, as UNIDO, we have experience on taking these technologies to the ground, so co-creating solutions with the farmers or with the community that we serve. But for today, I will bring you a case study from Sudan. So I bring you good news from Sudan. As much as there's war there, work is going on, and there are some of the solutions that we've been implementing co-created by them. Because as Powerful was mentioning, most of these renewable energy solutions came from rooftops. So they see them as powering domestic use. So transitioning from domestic use to the farm takes a lot of coalition building and working with the grassroots people, and for the farmers to believe that these solutions also can go and work for them. And we find, I will share with you the process we followed. This is Sudan for people who do not know. And we are implementing, we are implementing on the shaded area. That's where we are implementing in these two states. And where the war is most is here, and then this part of this area. So this area is where we are implementing, and work is still going on. And everybody is working and life going on, and they're very resilient farmers there. So what I'm going to present to you is the solution that we provided on an existing agro-value chain project. So this project was looking at processing, looking at production and marketing, and then the renewable energy solution for smallholder farmers, and we are looking at access to finance, because finance is needed across all the components. So this is the UNIDO integrated approach. So we look at, because in Sudan, they don't make these panels. So they are importers, they are certifiers, they are assemblers, they are distributors, end users, and post-sale services. So we look at all these nodes, and all our approach took technical assistance and blended finance, because without finance, then we are just talking to them. So they need to have, and when we were doing our studies, we found that there were programs before us. What they were doing is they are importing these solutions from abroad and distributing to the farmers. And most of them, as soon as the project was ended, they were not of use. So we conducted a socio-economic study in the target area to see what they need, the community assets that they already have, what can we use to build on, and then we identified the renewable energy value chains and technologies that they need. So based on our SDG 9 mandate, we say, let's look at these solutions and take to them. And then we conducted capacity building first, before even we introduced the energy solution. So there was capacity building at the TVET level, because we had to look at, after we leave, who will take care of these farmers and take care of the technology adoption and all that. So at the TVET level, we did TOT, we identified a TVET there, we built their capacity on this renewable energy, so they become our agents, because they have to use local language, local culture, and all that, so at the TVET level. Then we look at entrepreneur training for these farmers to start thinking of their farming activity, not for domestic use only, but as a means of livelihood. So we did entrepreneurial training, we do financial literacy. They started recording how they use the income they get from their farm output, so that they can see that they have the money, and this money can be used in a different way. And then we started conducting awareness. So at the TOT teams included also the Ministry of Agriculture there. So they are the ones who are conducting the awareness. I say these are the solutions that are available. So based on these solutions, they selected 2 of them. So the 2 they selected, then we went to the market. Yeah, so when we went to the market, we look at who is there. So we got around 70 of them, and we created a business-to-business opportunity for both the government, the private sector, the farmers, and all that. They came together. So, but before I go to the business-to-business opportunity, these are the barriers that we found. Not all of them, but some of them that I highlight here, because we have so many, we have very few, a few seconds to do that. Of the greatest importance is the finance, but also the psychological barrier, what I call the cultural barrier. Because the farmers, this talk about climate change is really good, but for them, they're looking at solutions. They don't want to listen about climate change. They want something that will give them money, something that will make them have efficient solution on the ground. So the cultural awareness is a great barrier, and the high cost of the initial high cost. If you look at this is a legacy investment of the old technology. The one you see down here, this is a legacy investment. It's an old British colonial investment. This is what they were using for the current irrigation system. Yeah. And then the need there at that time we were implementing is the climate change, of course, but they call it something differently, and the rising fuel cost. Electricity is not available there, and even when it's available, it's very, very expensive. So we selected two products, the dryer and also the pumping. And these were tailor-made to the level of these farmers. So you can go with big ideas, but it's beyond the reach of these farmers. So we go to what they like. So the dryer was for the women, because the women there dry the horticulture. They dry hibiscus, they dry all this, and they use them for home use, but also they use them to sell. So they selected the dryer, the community selected dryer, and then the farmer selected the irrigation system. So then in the TVET, this is the training. This is what they were using for the training. And this is now, we bought a demonstration equipment for them so that they can, for learning, and then for going to the field to demonstrate to the farmers how this works. Actually, some of the farmers could not believe that this can pump water for the whole period of time without the batteries, because the first solutions we're offering for them, not for the storage. We're offering something that they can use and can provide solution for them. So this was demonstration equipment that we provided for the TVET as a means of training, but also to demonstrate using farmer field schools on how they can use them. And then we went to the market now. This is the B2B we organized. Then 70 people, government people also came in, and there was demonstration and bringing all this together. But of the great importance is the financial mechanism. So we worked with the local central bank, the Ministry of Finance, to create a financial mechanism for these farmers to be able to collect, to be able to buy this. We didn't want to donate to these farmers, but we want them to access. So this is how it worked. Before when they were using the diesel engine, this was their cost. Yeah, they're using the old diesel engine, this was their cost. And this we worked together with the community there, and then with the cost of buying the panel they needed to do 4 to 7 hectares of land was around, to supply energy for 4 to 7 hectares of land was about 27,000 USD per year. So with this, we work backwards and prove to the banks that it's profitable to give the farmers to give the farmers money to buy this. But farmers were afraid of the banks. So we created a financial ecosystem outside of the banking system where pre-qualifying the farmers. So pre-qualifying them and accompanied by capacity building in terms of preparing their books to be able to be financed by the bank. So outside the banking system, they were able to interact with the financial institutions. The insurers were part of it. The central bank is part of it. And also the Ministry of Finance is the chair of this mechanism that pre-qualify them. And then when they're pre-qualified, then they're accompanied by capacity building in terms of preparing their business plan and how they're going to finance this. And this they've been able to upgrade from this. This is very, actually still working, but been able to upgrade from this into this. Before the war started, we wanted to upgrade now. So around 53 farmers have adapted this. Some individual farmers are able to buy this, and they'll be able to save money within a very few months. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Fred. And I think one of the things that I took from this presentation was just the complex situation, right, with on the ground, with the cultural factors, the finance, looking at the technology and the economics, etc., and taking this holistic approach to making it all come together and work out. So very, very interesting what UNIDO is doing there. Our next speaker is from the International Atomic Energy Agency. Now, I think most people, when they think here nuclear energy, they tend to think about power generation, right? I think that's sort of the natural association we make. But of course, nuclear is much more, and nuclear applications play a strong role also on agri-food systems. And Mohammed will tell us a lot more about this.
Okay, before I start my presentation, I would like to sip some water. And I did it on purpose because most of the time people think that IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency, is a nuclear watchdog. It's not. It's not only the nuclear watchdog, but it's doing a lot of good things using nuclear science and technology. And that nuclear science and technology means the water which I drink contain isotopes, oxygen 18 and deuterium. The air which we are breathing in this air contain N15 and carbon 13. So there is no threat, to the welfare or to the safety of the human being. This is, isotopes and nuclear science is part of our daily life. This is the key message I want to convey. And then, using these isotopic and nuclear techniques, we can provide or we can collect precise data which help us in guiding, which help us in better management. And that's where, okay, let's come to the topic of the other one that, okay, within the IAEA, I'm from the joint FAO IAE Center. So that means we are not only focusing on food security. Our aim is to enhance the food security, minimize land degradation, mitigate greenhouse gases using isotopic and nuclear techniques. And today I'm going to talk about this one, that, okay, normally people think that agriculture is the victim of climate change. It's true, because more than 25% of the greenhouse gases come from agriculture and land uses. But at the same time, it's the source. And that source means, in English, we always say that, if you are not part of the solution, then you are part of the problem. But my colleague, Michaela from FAO clearly mentioned that, okay, if we use agriculture smartly, then it can be a solution too. So, and I'm not going to go into more details like carbon sequestration. That's the only clean and green, source of sequestering carbon, capturing carbon from the atmosphere and storing it in the soil if we take the right direction in the right steps. So, why these greenhouse gases are increasing? Because, it's every time when we go from one socioeconomic class to another, our food pattern change, our food demand change. People switch into more protein, animal protein. And that means eating one ice cream a day means putting a lot of pressure on those countries which are producing dairy products. Similarly, good food always comes from good soil. And we need good management practices and good nutrient management practices. But without adding fertilizer, feeding the hungry population today is a dream, which will never come true. So that's why, worldwide, 120 million tons of nitrogen fertilizer. And then, on top of that, 260 million dairy cows, which are dumping a lot of urine and feces. Like, for example, if you look at New Zealand situation, on per capita basis, New Zealand is the most polluting country. Why? Because of the open grazing system. So, and that's where I come from. Then, the conversion of the peatland into farming, mostly in Africa and Asia. So these are some of the key factors which are accelerating the emission of greenhouse gases. Sorry, it's going this way? A green one, okay. The big green. Okay. Now, so what is the solution? Because, greenhouse gas are emitting, we are polluting our environment. So the only, to feed the 10 billion people by 2050, currently 829 million people go to bed hungry. And then by 2050, we will have extra 2 billion people. At the same time, we are losing our natural resources, land and water, at alarming rate. The only way to switch to climate-smart agriculture practices. And in climate-smart agriculture practices means that, okay, we not only increase the production of the major food security crops with less inputs, but at the same time, we need to decrease or mitigate the emission of greenhouse gases and making soil more resilient against climate change such as drought, flooding, and unexpected weather pattern. So let me just share with you that, okay, in the IAEA, through the joint FAO-IAE Center, we are helping our member states. And here are some of the key results. That in one of the CRP, which I led, so Brazil, Bangladesh, China, Costa Rica, Chile, Iran, and Pakistan, we developed climate-smart agriculture practices which contributed to more than 50% of the greenhouse gas emission from agriculture, at the same time increase the crop production in those countries. Until 2013, every single scientist believed that nitrous oxide, which is the most powerful greenhouse gas, come only from nitrification and denitrification. That's why most of the mitigation options were focused on nitrification level. There was no such things. But with the help of the nuclear techniques, such as N15, we identified two major microbial processes which are contributing more. And similarly, with the help of my counterparts from Brazil, we developed a very effective, robust, and cheap method of measuring ammonia volatilization, which we call $1. So all you need to do is to cut the bottom of the Coke or any other fizzy drinks, and then install that as a chamber and measure the greenhouse gases of ammonia, which does not require any energy or any solar panel. Here, land degradation. Unfortunately, 80% of the degraded land is found in the developing country. And we have already lost 65% of resources through land degradation of salinization, through erosion, through soil compaction, and through soil acidity. If we are using the non-isotopic techniques, it takes about 10 years to measure and to reach to a certain conclusion. But by using nuclear and isotopic techniques, we can do it in less than a month interval. So this is the beauty. And by putting, the climate-smart agriculture practices, you can see that in China, in Indonesia, Pakistan, Philippines, Vietnam, we reduced the land degradation in those experimental sites by 50%. Cassava is a major food crop in Africa as well as in Asia. But the traditional cassava production in Africa is less than 10 tons, because the way it was promoted was that it does not need any water, it's very resilient. It's true, it's resilient, but like any other crop, cassava do need a balanced proportion of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassiums, and other nutrients. And by bringing climate-smart agriculture practices, we increase the cassava production from traditional 10 tons to more than 50 tons in more than 6 African countries. So, the key message is that climate-smart agriculture practices are the solution to the food insecurity, and nuclear techniques plays a key role in developing them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. That was a very clear message and also a very systematic overview. So, as you would expect from a scientist. Thank you. Our next presenter is an entrepreneur, right? And we've all seen the power of entrepreneurship, I think, in today more than ever in this globalized world. And we need this power also in the agri-food sector. Please. Over to you, Joey.
Okay, thank you. It's great to be here. I would like to start from a question. That is, we are talking about clean energy, but the question is, how about geographically concentrated clean energy cannot do? Because so far we have we are building a lot of big-sized geographically concentrated clean energy plant. But as long as I think the distributed peoples and the families in the world, they do need decentralized renewable energy. because according to the IEA, the solar energy is so far the cheapest energy in the history. So decentralized solar energy is a very good choice for those people who has no long hope to actually get electrified, and especially for those with the greatest need but latest voices. And it's very important for them to achieve energy independent and energy self-sufficient. That's to achieve energy inequality. Another thing I want to emphasize is the value about decentralized solar energy. Their value at non-irrigation time, they can used for the driving, for the cooling, cooking, lighting, and education, and also for the clean water and the sanitation. Take some numbers, for example. In China, the groundwater pumping in irrigation accounts for 40% of overall agriculture GMG emissions. And in Africa, there's a data 59% of global GHG emissions. And also here's in the dairy value chain, the GHG from dairy industry. There are 22% from cow food crops, and 12% from cow shed daily cleaning, and another 19% from feces treatment. So considering about a huge proportion, if we change most of them from into the decentralized renewable energy, that would be a great contribution. Another one I want to say, take a further step to see is we do right things and we do things right. The photos in the left shown in an Africa country. They use, you can count, there are 30 pieces of solar panels to drive only a blue water pump there. It's like a 2 kW. In order to accumulate, that's an AC pump. In order to accumulate enough voltage, they need so many solar panels. That makes the whole system expensive, and the return on investment would take a long time. Take this one, for example. Here's a DC technology. This is a video, but can you play this video here? For this one, it takes only 3 pieces of a solar panel, and then yes. This is a video. Yeah, take a look at this. Only 3 pieces of solar panel, and you get so powerful water pumping. And that's the difference between AC and DC, like Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla, right? Okay, let me continue. Here's a, okay. Besides the irrigation, we also have the DC-powered fertilizer combined with irrigation, fertigation. That's important for a lot of growers, especially they have lack of know-how and experience. Professors like Mohammed, they have guidance to the growers, but I think there are many information losses during the whole process. Especially there's language differences. That's called Tower Babel difference. So suppose you have 100% in your knowledge, but you can only, there's explicit knowledge and implicit knowledge. And then maybe 80% you can express by your language. And after translation into other languages, you have language entropy losses. And then the listeners, they understand, they receive your information based on their own experience and knowledge. And then maybe only 60% left in their mind after they get back to their daily work. Maybe only 20% left, and that's information loses. So the technical instrument or the equipment is very important for them to keep the exactly original advices or the guidance for their daily work. That's why besides the irrigation, the fertigation is also important. And here's an example of what we are doing in the Chinese Xinjiang place. This is for the saline alkaline soil treatment. We have some powered pumps to take saline alkaline soil treatment with very good result. The salt content dropped from 30 per million to 10 per million. That's a very good achievement. And we can also have e-boat, the fish boat, e-outboard. There's also a combination between the decentralized renewable energy and the brushless DC motor. There's a good combination. We have already put this into use in some Southeast Asia countries. And the technology can, beside the irrigation, it can also put into the aeration. The fish pond to an agriculture, you can improve the oxygenation and the water circulation. So the fish inside will get more oxygen and also wastewater treatment. Here's first, decentralized renewable energy can also to driven the DC frigid. The DC, not the AC, DC frigid, and also DC fans. And also we can, together with batteries, lithium batteries, we can deliver not only the direct power electricity, but also we can storage energy storage in the battery. For us, we have overseas inventory, and we are moving towards to the overseas order fulfillment center. And in the future, we're going to the local operation to deliver, to have combined effort to get finance support or the technical support, pre-sales technical support and after-sales technical support as well. And the system can also support carbon credits. You can record your data in the cloud, then to secure is. First, we also donate to some projects, to some places about poverty elimination. All the purpose of our system, this is to provide affordable and scalable irrigation or the fertigation equipment. Here's sun-powered, solar-powered frigid. Yes. Here's it's our great honor to be listed in the UNIDO WITS by IPTO Shanghai, and also the first prize winner of UNIDO Global Core, and also we have 10 decentralized renewable solar water solution for high-profile officers organized by the FAO in the Asia-Pacific regions, and also first prize winner of Youth Hackathon for green low-carbon agriculture. I would like to have more partners where together we can deliver and to improve to raise awareness of decentralized solar energy, and also takes policy. For example, the policy makers is I think very good for the Indian policy makers. They have a strong subsidy for the decentralized solar irrigation. They have 60% to 80% subsidy. That's why Indian market is the world's biggest and the quickest decentralized solar irrigation market in the world. And we can partner up to have a joint investment in the Africa countries or Southeast Asia countries to provide finance support, and local operation can also provide technical support as well. services, and we can empowerment. If there's young people from different countries, they want to have, if they want young people or young groups, they want to do solar decentralized solar energy project, we can partner up together. Here's the last video I want to share. Can you play that?
That already exist. Scale them up, particularly in the developing world, and make them affordable with more efficient irrigation techniques. And many countries, by the way, including China, have already started implementing this. It's not some fancy frontier technologies. It already exists.
Thank you.
Thank you, Choi. Yeah, so I think your presentation really brought home to me the message that, I mean, we have so many different solutions, right, and approaches and the business models. But on the last slide, you also showed we need to be connecting the dots, right? We need to partner up in order to create the space to actually apply these solutions. And it's a pity we didn't have a regulator speak today. So maybe it would have been interesting to hear from that side as well. So now we have, I think, about 15 minutes, right? Yeah, 15 minutes for Q&A. So I would also like to invite the panelists to these comfortable chairs here in the front, so that we can open up the discussion a little bit. Please, Olive. Yeah, I think Michaela is humble. She can. So if you have any questions, please do raise your hand. There's a microphone here, and maybe we also have one to go around. If not, I'm also happy to pass around my microphone. So please don't be shy. I'm sure that a lot of questions came up to your mind. It was definitely a set of stimulating discussions. While we wait for potential questions from the audience, I want to stimulate also a bit, because I was just mentioning connecting the dots, right? So we have very different sets of expertise here: capacity building, analytics, mobilization, communication, and technology and entrepreneurship. So I'd just be interested to learn from panelists if they have learned anything today, and you know, where maybe the dots could be connected better and stronger. But I see some questions, yes. So I'll start with this, with you, and then there's someone in the back, so please. And if you can introduce yourself, that would be great.
Hi, my name is Bu. I'm a CEO and the founder of a startup based in Senegal, working on solar irrigation systems. And I think for smallholder farmers, we're mostly serving smallholder farmers in the country. So we started the company 2 years ago, and we've been able to deliver around 1,000 solar water pumping systems to those farmers. But the main issue is financing, the access to financing for those smallholder farmers. Solutions are out there. I mean, the technology is there, the technology is mature, but the key barrier is how to have those technology on the hand of smallholder farmers. From our experience, we've been able to link with some of the local microfinance institutions to provide funding for up to 3 years financing. But the main barrier we're facing right now is scaling, how to scale this. I mean, we have around 4 million smallholder farmers in the country. 1,000 is nothing, but scaling is one of the big issues. So my question to all those panelists is how to help those pilots, those experience, scale up with, climate financing or any kind of, solution that exists today to help scale those small initiatives around the countries in West Africa. Yeah, thanks.
Very good question. So This was a question to all the panelists, I understand. I see Christina is very eager. So over to you, please. Thanks, Christina.
Sure. No, and that's a great question. And I just want to point out that there's not a lot of business people in the room, I don't think. How many of us are business people? Right. So, and it's a very brave CEO that comes from the private sector to hang out with regulators and policymakers, so good on you. But it also, I think, really speaks to the issue of the problems with climate finance. So, we're all hearing about the billions of dollars that are accumulating out there, whether it's through the Green Climate Fund or through private investors, et cetera. And at the end of the day, only 4% of climate finance or less comes to the agricultural sector. And even less of that is actually put to work in developing countries. When you actually look at how that money's spent, it's usually on solutions that are largely for the global north. And to just put a very fine point on it, and one of the things my organization is known for is not being afraid to be the tip of the spear, but I think it's fair to say that the global north needs to help be part of that transition. So voices from everywhere need to push for a change in getting that money out of large banks that are, basically aggregating funds and not getting them into the hands of people fast enough. That's one of the biggest problems. In fact, the new head of the World Bank himself was ashamed by the fact that it takes 27 months to get money and programs through the World Bank on average. That's shocking. And when we're talking about a few decades left to achieve the SDGs, let alone the numbers that need to be realized to make sure we don't tip the scales over 1.5 degrees Celsius, we're in a big problematic situation. So, it really, I think, is the responsibility of allies to this effort everywhere to keep speaking up about that. One small thing that Power for All will be doing is we are launching a campaign to identify mini-grid financing, because that's one of the key technologies, right, for decentralized energy supply needed for farmers. And we're basically asking the question, where's the money? Where's it gone? Because what we found in our initial analysis is that over $1 billion was committed for mini grids alone, but about 14% has been distributed. That's it. And those are promises over the course of 3 to 5 years. That's obscene. We don't have time. So thank you so much for your question. Thank you for the great work you do. And bottom line, you and others who care about this need to do what we can to, whether it's on social or direct one-to-one contact with people, be very pointed about needing to release those funds and not just making promises.
Thank you. Christina, Fred, please.
From the community level, this is what we discovered. When we were implementing in Sudan, finance was there for the smallholder farmer. It was there, but in the banks. Africa Development Bank and had a mechanism for, they put a fund in the bank, and it was ring-fenced. But the mechanism of accessing these funds was not friendly to the smallholder farmers. There's an element of risk. This risk, nobody wants to take it. So the bank says farmers are risk, and the bank also the farmers look at the banks as a risk. They might take their equipment in case they default. So the first thing we did is to look at who can solve this risk mechanism. Because in most cases, the money is with the microfinance, the money is with the banks, but it's not released because of this risk mechanism. So what we did is we look at the local policy, and we identified that the central bank in Sudan had a policy of encouraging lending to the farmers, but it was not implemented because there was no institutional ecosystem to facilitate this. So this is where we went first. So it takes time to do this, but this is where we went first. I say, who is able to de-risk? Who is able to bring everybody, a coalition, everybody to the table to talk about this risk? So we brought everybody to the table, including the ministry, and they agreed on how to de-risk this. So we just put the seed money to start this. And the results we found is that the government started putting money on it because it was working. We demonstrated that if you put a lending system that pre-qualifies outside the banking system, because farmers are afraid to show up because they don't have a cash flow. Most of them, actually, I didn't play a video here. A 56-year-old farmer say, for the first time, I'm 56-year-old, for the first time I've received money from the bank and I bought my own asset. because they were afraid of the bank. So the biggest hindrance, apart from the big ticket, because from our idea, from project perspective, we thought about off-grid solutions because it will give a lot of more co-benefits. But we said farmers need solutions now, and they need to move from diesel pumping to solar pumping. How do we get them money now? Is to de-risk this. So for the country where you are, look at the policy. Look at the central bank policy, the government policy, and look at who holds the power to make this policy work. And in most cases, the policy out there is not implemented. Then work through this system, this institutional ecosystem, to de-risk and other mechanism. Then they start. Then we graduate into the mini grids and we go to the climate financing. But the farmers need solution today. And if we can get them financing today, they will implement. They will buy them because they would like to buy this. They don't want donations. Yeah, they want to invest, and they need money to invest, and they pay. For Sudan, it took them around 6 months to pay back and start making money, because at that time, the oil prices were just over the roof. So within 6 months like this, they were able to repay, and banks now are coming together, and they're pushing this. They're pushing this. It's just that the war kind of intervened. We were going to go, we had already designed even a mini-grid solution for this, but the war came in, so the financing is strained, but policies and building coalition is very important in terms of access to finance.
Thank you very much, Fred. So it's already clear to me that I think some of these conversations need to be continued after the session as well. So please, I do encourage everyone to exchange cards and contacts, etc. And okay, Shawai. And then I have, after that, 2 more questions, I think. Then we'll run out of time, unfortunately. But please, Shawai.
Okay, I'll quickly go through this question. I think money, they are looking for any project with very good ROI. So if your project with the same, like in my PPT in the left side, they have very bad ROI. But if your project, I mean, that's a technical related issue. If you choose a good solution, good equipment, then your ROI could be guaranteed. I think financing money, they will take this into consideration very much. Another thing is whether the country, they have a supportive policy. For example, a subsidy, or they can have a duty-free during the import. That's policy related. And if they really have the political willingness to solve this problem, to upscale the decentralized solar irrigation, then the policymaker need to consider about the policy import. The second solution would be if we have joint invest in the target countries, we have not only overseas inventory, but also we have assemble locally and operation locally. That could be dramatically drop the costs. Then also uplift the ROI, I think. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'll take 2 questions right after each other before we give it back to the panel. So first the gentleman back here, and then here. Yes.
I'm going to stand up because I'm in the back. Good morning, everyone. Christina kind of stole my point about where the money is, but let me start by introducing myself very quickly. I'm Henok. I come from Ethiopia. I run a company called Precise, which is a private sector development shop. I works in supporting smallholder-driven agriculture and distributed energy in Ethiopia. We work with Selco Foundation in Ethiopia as well. And I wear a second hat. I am also co-founder and general partner at a venture capital firm that is seeking to invest in early stage companies that bring these sorts of innovations into the market and scale them up, and which is really where I feel like we're really losing out, because this is crossing that chasm is really the biggest issue. The technologies, I think our colleague from the private sector said the technologies are there. First, what we need is the change of attitude. We are not really, especially in Africa, we don't need to build a massive, massive power infrastructure to serve our demand. 99% of our demand is either a small farm or a small business or a micro business. When we're building these huge power plants and losing a lot of energy in the distribution infrastructure to power a manufacturing revolution that has failed to take off. It's really a lot of loss there. And when it comes to really rethinking development, Africa really should be the center of it, because we don't have existing legacy systems. We have already shown ourselves. I come from a country of 120 million people where there's less than 1 million landlines. Everything is mobile. And through the mobile, all kinds of distributed service is being available now. So we're not building branches in banks the way the rest of the world had to build branches. We're leapfrogging. So what we have now, for instance, again, in my country where I come from, in the last 18 months, we have 40 million mobile wallets operating, 40 million. You see the scale of how this is moving. And this is creating new opportunities to propagate more distributed stuff. The next revolution is gonna have to be energy. And I think in a very short period of time, we can make all of these technologies available so that a massive industry like agriculture, not only from the climate perspective, but if you're looking at SDG 1 and 2 specifically, in Ethiopia, 95% of food is produced by small farmers with less than half a hectare of land available to them. A third of GDP is agriculture. Problem is, all of it, 90% of it, is rain-fed agriculture. And what's happening with rain-fed agriculture? You all know. Predictability of rain is going down, droughts are going up, more disaster coming. So we know this is coming. So my question, or just the point for the panel to elaborate is, first of all, where is that philanthropic capital? Why is it not taking the risk? Philanthropic capital is supposed to take most of the risk. Early stage, everything we hear from philanthropy, all the climate capital that's coming is, this is too risky. This is too small for us. This is, we can't work with local organizations because they don't write good reports. It's tiresome. We need to stop. Very few philanthropic organizations. I have Yolanda next to me. I would say at the climate conference in Kampala, almost everything groundbreaking, almost all the risky but extremely potential stuff that's happening in Africa. I saw an IKEA Foundation logo next to it. They could do more too, but why are we even talking if we cannot put the money down on the ground? That's what I want to say, and hopefully our colleagues here can comment. My brother from South Sudan, we were looking at companies in South Sudan as well. That's a market, that is a population that's deathly in need of this stuff. The most expensive power we have in this world is the one that we don't have it. And South Sudan, with a penetration of 7% of the population. This is insanity. Why are we even getting together in Vienna?
Thank you very much. Very, very clear message. And so before we go back to the panel, there's another question from this gentleman.
Thank you. Gerd Buriam, I'm lecturer at the University of Technology in Vienna, Renewable Energy, Master of Science for Renewable Energy. We have already students during the last 15 years from more than 50 countries. My question is, the European Union, especially with EIB, European Investment Bank, provides a lot of funds. EIB is the biggest development bank in the world and the biggest climate bank. So my question is, have you already experienced working with the European Commission and the EIB? First question. Second question, agri-PV, agricultural photovoltaics is one of the big themes now in Europe and maybe also worldwide. In Austria, we have a research center or research project also with the Ministry for Agriculture. One of the output is that with specific crops, you have a higher yield in combination with agri-PV and of course additional electricity from the solar panels. So my question is this a theme, agricultural PV, in your, let's say, operations in your countries?
Thank you. I'm very sorry that we're already actually at the end of the session time-wise, so I can't take any more questions. And I'm also asking the panelists very briefly in your answers, please. So we have 3 questions actually. Does anyone want to start? Any volunteers? Yes, we had one in the back, and this gentleman had 2 questions. Please, yes.
The gentleman at the back made statements, but I think the question he was asking is where is the philanthropy fund? From community perspective, I think these communities, as much as they're looking at philanthropy, I think the communities look at solutions. And in most cases in these communities, they can be able to fund some of the solutions they are looking at. But it requires that we unlock the structural issues within the ecosystem, within those countries. Philanthropy can only go this much. And it's a needle we can push, but I think community-driven solutions are the answer to this. So philanthropy can come and help unlock it, but I think we cannot propose philanthropy-driven solutions to the communities. For example, this community we supported in Sudan, these solutions came from them, and they were willing to invest their community assets. So what the project did is to facilitate the unlocking of this community asset to be able to provide solutions. So if we're thinking of these solutions, we need to also have a different paradigm shift in terms of how we deliver this financing, that we have to take care of the community interest and how they can be able to build together, co-create these solutions to them. So even when it comes to designing financing, like you're talking about all this foundation financing, World Bank financing, they are not able to bring impact if they are not community driven. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fred. Any other takers? Uta, please.
Yeah, I just, just add to the point on philanthropy. I mean, it's nice, and of course we all know that, IKEA Foundation, as an example, has done some great work. But in terms of where all the big financial flows are, we can't expect that from philanthropy. I mean, there are huge relatively large financial flows from obviously the development banks, but also the private sector money. There's still far too much going into fossil fuels. We at IRENA have been analyzing what money goes into renewables and which countries. It's all flowing in the global north and not into the global south. So there needs to be much more work in terms of de-risking. I mean, that's where public money should be spent to ensure that some of the private money can come in. It's a very complex thing, and I think, there is a big question why the world has got enough money to sort it out, but it's not happening. I don't have the solution. We're an international organization trying to draw attention to it like many others, but unfortunately we are not the ones who can solve it in the end. There needs to be a lot more political will to sort it out.
Thank you, Uta. Now, I realize we haven't answered all questions that were posed, but at this point, unfortunately, I have to close the discussion. So I will hand over to Michaela, who will quickly give some key messages that we've heard today. And Michaela, please, or as you wish.
Thank you. So we are tight with time, but I've seen, people trying to ask for the floor to raise questions. But we have a networking lunch, no? I mean, the organizers of this conference have diligently organized networking lunch because, of course, we know that we would go, for ages for going ahead with discussions and exchange. So I would invite you all to get in contact with speakers and myself and Martin as moderator, and please let's have an exchange. We are more than happy to continue this dialogue. I have just a few take-home messages that I've taken while hearing from the discussion and the presentations. So, including also some of the inputs that came from this morning plenary that I found extremely interesting. So the importance of the interconnection between energy, agriculture, and climate, which is not to be given for granted, because it's really important to highlight how the three elements are strictly interconnected, and how agriculture and CSA, climate smart agriculture, could be part of the solution. We've heard that it doesn't exist a one-size-fits-all approach, but it's very context specific. It has to be, I mean, we have to go into the details of the contexts in order to fit and develop the right solution specifically for that context. We've heard a lot of good examples also in terms of green job application and all the sustainability aspects that green energy could bring in terms of environmental, social, and economic aspects. Something that I haven't heard much and that I believe is extremely important, as well as our joint effort to reduce emissions and to improve the sustainability of the agricultural value chain, is behavioral changes. I mean, of course, as this morning in the plenary, we have the first 5 big emitters in the world. We should start from there in order to reduce emissions. The G20 is contributing to 80% of the global emissions. Right, it's true. But each of us could contribute in our own day-to-day life with little behavioral changes that altogether, up to 8 billion, how many we are, it could contribute. And in fact, IEA, the International Energy Agency, last year in the net zero emission overview, highlighted how behavioral changes could contribute a lot to the whole change. Training, of course, it was highlighted, as a barrier. So the need to have to improve the know-how of smallholders in particular. Big point on how to scale. So the importance of scaling up good examples. And in this case, finance, of course, is an important point. It was rightly pointed out that energy in agriculture only receive 4% of the whole finance in climate, which is nothing. And in this case, of course, it's important to concentrate more and more on developing countries, more and more on smallholders, in order to involve also the most vulnerables and give them also sustainable development opportunities. Hopefully, at COP28, I see that there are opportunities of improving, let's say, in this as well in terms of financing. We really need to. Also for us as FAO, for example, access to, someone mentioned the difficulty of accessing to World Bank funds. That's the same for GCF, GEF funds. Also for us as FAO is extremely complicated. So this means that if it's complicated to FAO as a big structure, UN organization, can you imagine to the smallholder in Senegal? Or, so this is the kind of concrete intervention that is needed in order to make sure that financing is more accessible. And last but not least, I would say, maybe not too much touched upon in the discussion today, but the importance of policies. So the real examples, the real good cases also give information to policymakers on how to better improve their national policies in order to be on the right track in terms of sustainable development. And something that I believe, to close, it's really important is an extra effort by policymakers in order to include energy in agri-food systems into their nationally determined contributions. Because by doing this and by being in the position to demonstrate the achievement of these targets into their NDCs, this would facilitate a financing flow. So with this, I would like to close this side event. A last round of applause to our speakers, to our moderator that guide us through the event, and a big thank you. So enjoy your networking lunch. Thank you so much.